Joining us now is Michael Kroger, former president of the Victorian Liberal Party and Sky News contributor. Michael, thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure.
Donald Trump, he has blasted European leaders, saying that they are weak, they have failed to control immigration, and they are too politically correct. The US president told Politico that most European nations are decaying. He says that many of those countries will not be viable countries any longer because their immigration policy is a disaster. He also attacked European leaders for not taking decisive action to end the war between Russia and Ukraine, claiming they don't know what to do. And this is Donald Trump. Well, this is part of the interview with Politico after Politico named Trump as the most influential person shaping Europe.
So how involved are you going to get? I mean, could we see you getting involved in European elections,
I want to run the United
example?
States. I don't want to run Europe. I'm involved in Europe very much.
Might you endorse
NATO
candidates?
calls me daddy. I mean, I have a lot to say about it. Look, I raised, the GDP from 2% to 5%. The 2% they weren't paying and the 5% they are paying. And they're paying it because when we send things over, NATO pays for it, and I assume they give it to Ukraine. But Europe is being destroyed.
Michael, what's your assessment of this?
Well, you're never in any doubt about what he thinks. And basically he views the Europeans as sort of a group of leaders sitting at the Ritz in Paris or London, having afternoon tea. That's how he sort of views them. So in relation to the Ukraine, I, like a lot of people, would prefer him to be much more pro-Zelensky. But on the other hand, what's he actually doing here? He's actually saying to the Europeans, this is your business. This is not the Americans' business. And the Americans shouldn't be funding your war. Ukraine is part of, extended Europe. So his perceived weakness on Ukraine is basically him saying to the Europeans, this is your business. You are increasing defence spending, and it's your business to defend Ukraine, you weak lot, which is basically what he's saying to them. So much of what he's saying is right about immigration. Of course, we see what's happening in France, you see what's happening in England, you see what has already happened in places like Belgium. So his message to the Europeans is, you've got to be a lot stronger in relation to your borders, your country and your defences. And on that, it's pretty hard to criticise him because I think he's right.
Let's talk about AUKUS. The Trump administration has assured that the AUKUS deal with Australia is going to go full steam ahead. So the debate now is how best to manage the AUKUS pact. Of course, acquiring nuclear submarines is estimated to cost around $368 billion through to 2055. So part of that, Michael, would you say would be, of course, lifting defence spending?
Well, you'd think so, but like a lot of these Western nations, there's a great reticence to lift the spending because it means the governments have got to either go heavily further into debt or they've got to cut social programs, and neither of those are particularly palatable. So let's be frank though, Gabriella, for a lot of governments, when you can kick something into the 2050s, that's an easy sell. People say, oh, you like the idea of submarines. Well, we don't have to pay for them and get them delivered for a decade or more. That's an easy political sell. So we're not getting the first subs till the Virginia-class subs till the early 2030s. And again, that's probably beyond the life of the current Australian government. So this is the way, you can talk all you like about how wonderful it is. We're getting nuclear subs. We're building a base in Western Australia to service them, and they'll be used for our defence in the Pacific, etc., etc. But it's such a long way away. It's a win-win for Australia, and it's certainly a win-win for America.
Now, Michael, it appears that the New York Times has just discovered that Biden's border crisis was quite bad. This week, they published an article titled How Biden Ignored Warnings and Lost Americans' Faith in Immigration, which revealed that Joe Biden was warned by advisors that his immigration plans could lead to chaos, would you believe, at the US border, and Biden ignored those warnings. So according to this memo obtained by the New York Times, Biden's advisors said that a potential surge could create chaos and a humanitarian crisis, overwhelm processing capabilities, and they offered steps that Joe Biden could take to stop the influx of illegals, but Biden ignored that advice. Michael, why is the New York Times writing about this now? Why are they suddenly writing about the crisis at the border now, long after it matters?
Because it doesn't matter politically now. The election's over. They were trying to help the Democrats, but to square the circle for history because they're a newspaper of record. They say, oh, yes, of course, we talked about the border crisis. Well, of course, hello, a year after the election. I mean, don't forget, the New York Times has a notorious record. It was slow in the 1950s to be concerned about the expansion of the Nazis. The New York Times has a notorious record for being hard left on these types of issues and missing the mark and deliberately trying to assist those on the left in American politics in particular. So this was an appalling oversight by the New York Times. It's why you can't trust the New York Times. I mean, you really can't trust the newspaper. They censor news, basically. That's what they do. And when a news organisation like that censors the news because it's harmful to their side, I mean, you look at what's happening in Minnesota now. For years and years, people have been talking about how these frauds have been taking place under that dope Tim Walz. That's the complete dope of a governor. Now it's only that a lot of the old legacy, the fossil media, are getting onto this. So this is a notorious part of the left-wing media in America. It's been like this for a long period of time, and it's why their news sources are no longer trusted, Gabriella.
Yeah, and just reading that, it reminds me of CNN's Jake Tapper writing a book that Biden isn't that sharp anymore. I mean, some fair reporting at the time would have actually been useful.
Yes.
Michael, we are asking everyone's winner and loser of the year. It's been a pretty wild and big year in news. Who's your winner? Who's your loser?
Well, I think the winner has to be Trump in America. I mean, people say his polls are down. Yeah, and there's a reason for that. Revolutions are always messy. People think, yes, we should have a revolution. When the actual revolution's on, people go, oh, it's very untenable. It's messy. It's making me feel uncomfortable. I don't like it. It's concentrating on the wrong things. It's not talking about me. It's, they're talking about other things like Europe and Gaza, etc. So the polls are down because people think, well, it's not really about me and it's messy. What happens, though, in a year or 2 years' time, as you get close to the presidential election in 28, people will look back on the Trump period and say, well, this guy stopped all these wars. He got the hostages out. He bombed the Iranian nuclear facilities, 27 minutes that took. He closed the American borders, one of the most significant achievements. He stopped or slowed the flow of fentanyl into America. He's cleaning up American universities. He's done a hell of a lot to expose the disgusting anti-Semitism coming out of American universities, et cetera, et cetera. So, American supremacy and resetting the world order has been an extraordinary achievement. The most consequential president in my lifetime. We don't like everything he does.
Yeah.
But boy, when you look at that list, that's been a year for the ages. To be a little bit more flippant and less serious, the loser of the year, it has to be that fool Greta Thunberg, hasn't it? And that anyone takes Greta Thunberg seriously. I mean, she's a dialer demonstration, and she's had a shocker of a year. So she goes down as my loser of the year, and let's hope we've seen the last of Greta, Gabriella.
I don't think we have, Michael. I'm sorry to tell you. She's going back to protesting about climate change, causing so much chaos.
Stick to that.
She claimed.
Stick to that.
Yes, but she claimed she was kidnapped by Israel. She was given sandwiches, deported. Unbelievable. A good loser, good choice, I should say. What about the craziest media moment?
Well, I think that fellow Matthew Dowd put on a disgusting performance after the death of the great Charlie Kirk, when he made those awful comments for which he was sacked, basically trying to say, well, really, he deserved it. And
let's take a listen. We have the grab, Michael. Let's just take a listen.
You do. Great.
But following up on what was just said, he's been one of the most divisive, especially divisive younger figures in this, who is constantly sort of pushing this sort of hate speech or sort of aimed at certain groups. And I always go back to hateful thoughts lead to hateful words, which then lead to hateful action.
Yeah, absolutely disgusting, suggesting it was his fault. Just appalling.
That is sick and wrong on so many levels. I mean, could you have seen a more respectful person than Kirk? I mean, I was at university, as you were many years ago, and the hatred on universities and the abuse, but the way he treated people with extraordinary respect when they got to the microphone in hundreds of those meetings. What's this clown talking about? hateful language. No, he was entering into a debate with people, and then basically to say, "Oh well, it could have been one of his own supporters," just letting off steam. I mean, really? I mean, that type of sicko shouldn't be on television, and thank goodness he was sacked. And let's hope we don't see the like of him again, because that was just a disgusting part of our history, and that clip will be long remembered for all of the wrong reasons.
Yeah, no, it was disgusting. Michael, looking ahead, what are the challenges for leaders next year?
I think as always, the global economy is a worry. Too many Western governments have such debt levels, it's beyond belief. One of my criticisms of Trump is that, the big beautiful bill is going to take American debt from 36 to 39 trillion US dollars. That's serious money. I mean, sooner or later, Western governments, because there's so much pressure on them to increase defence spending and social services, they're massively increasing their debt. There will be a day of reckoning. So what would be hopeful in the next couple of years is for the OECD to get together, and both the G8, the G20, to basically say, hey, our debt levels are so severe, we can't keep spending money beyond our capacity to properly run our economy. So I think the challenge for the next year and the year after that is, how do we get governments who've got surplus budgets paying down their debt and living within their means, because they're just leaving. It's not just Trump, Australia's worse. We're just leaving huge deficits, these legacies, which we're leaving for our children and and their children, and it's a shocking legacy we're leaving. And so the focus on international growing debt in Western nations, to me, is right up the top of the list of things that need to be properly examined.
Well, speaking of spending money, let's talk about Annika Wells just quickly. Finally, there are calls for Communications Minister Annika Wells to stand down amid the controversy of her use of taxpayer funds, charging taxpayers $100,000 to attend a 3-day summit in New York, a trip to Thredbo. Michael, should she resign?
Well, I think she probably should. I mean, she's not the only person that's done this. But if you look at a list of expenses, I mean, she goes to the tennis, she keeps the Commonwealth driver car waiting for 7 hours, and spends $1,000 whilst the car's waiting outside. I mean, I always look at it this way: would you spend your own money that way? Would a small business man or woman spend their money that way? An American farmer, an Australian childcare worker. Would you go to the tennis and keep the car waiting? No, but because it's on the taxpayer, and that to me says that there's a mindset. There's a mindset of a minister, which is, it's on the public expense. I don't care what it costs. I don't really care. And she's done that on numerous occasions. And so the shocking disregard for the taxpayer dollar is something I just find appalling. And yeah, she should resign. I mean, people in Australia are disgusted by what they've seen. But this is typical of a lot of our politicians. There's been a bit of this on both sides over the years. So yeah, she should go, and we can get some proper rules and regulations about ministerial expenditure, because at the minute they're out of control.
Michael Kroger, thank you so much for joining us on Power Hour. Really appreciate it.
Pleasure. See you next year.